different types, high-end types, low-end types, different forms for the market.
A farm in the heart of downtown San Diego. That's the vision of Brandon Martella. But the 24-year-old architect's farm doesn't stretch outward. It rises upward, 500 feet, like a skyscraper greenhouse.
And the whole concept is to challenge the atypical means of American produce consumption and transcend that boundary of where your food comes from to where it's sold.
Half of Martella's so-called vertical farm is for residential living, the other half for growing crops, 23 acres worth, like lettuce, corn, tomatoes, carrots, and even grains. The bottom level is a farmer's market.
You can actually walk into the market and look up and see 500 feet of fresh vegetables being grown.
Residents have the option to grow and sell their own crops, but Martella has also designed plans for hired help.
I kind of pictured this transient worker, just like how typical farming is. And so at the base, there's units that are right next to the farm, and so the farmers who live there could actually tend to the crops.
He says his farm is capable of producing 500,000 pounds of food every 3 months, all within easy reach of 30,000 downtown residents. He sees it as the answer to a food supply strained by population growth and climate change.
A statistic that really struck me hard was that according to the FDA, the average American consumes 707 pounds of fresh fruit and vegetables a year. That's average. If each one of us is consuming that much, like the food demand, and with population growth, there's soon to be, a crisis.
Martella's vertical farm is sustainable and doesn't require any dirt or pesticides.
The system I would want to use is to reclaim the gray water from the residential, and that would actually feed into the building, be pumped to the top through a series of aerobic reactions and charcoal filters. The water would be cleansed, and then that would feed the plants. And you can actually use extracts from worm casings, and then that's what feeds the plants. So there's no chemicals.
Brandon's idea started at his apartment window in January of 2012. He grew enough lettuce to last him for 2 weeks using a hydroponic system he rigged up himself.
So you can see this is from red leaf lettuce.
30 miles north in Escondido, Bill Bramer has been a farmer for 33 years. He owns the 160-acre Be Wise Ranch, where he grows a little bit of everything.
Tomatoes, squash, cucumbers.
Bramer agrees there's a benefit to growing crops inside where it's environmentally controlled. Last month, he lost 40% of one of his strawberry fields to freezing temperatures. He says Mother Nature is harsh.
Last year we had 10 acres of tomatoes that we couldn't pick because it got so hot for 3 days that everything got sunburned. All the fruit just cooked on one side, so you had to throw it all away.
But he says he's not a big fan of hydroponically grown crops because they lack nutrition and flavor.
Here we're in the riverbed, minerals have come through for, centuries and centuries, so all those minerals in that spectrum is in the soil for that plant to be able to absorb.
Bramer says he likes Martella's vertical farm concept, but says he'll continue to weather the climate and stick with the dirt.
I've never had a greenhouse tomato that tastes like a good vine-ripe outdoor tomato.
Back in downtown San Diego, Martella is hoping a developer will sprout some interest and build his vertical farm on what is now a parking lot on First Avenue and Island Street.
I picked that site because it's a very dynamic site. There's a trolley stop right there, so you get a lot of activity from that. The convention center is right across Harbor. You have high-end residential with kind of middle-range residential and then even long-term hotels.
I think he's come upon an excellent concept, a phenomenal concept in the sense that he's proposing to mix agriculture in a downtown urban fabric, so that's novel.
Sherry Ryan is a professor of city planning at SDSU's School of Public Affairs. She says her only critique is that she thinks his design is too big for downtown.
And it kind of sticks out. And so what I'd like to see Martella do is to try to take that same concept and blend it into the suburban fabric that is San Diego. He could, for example, go to southeastern San Diego and Canto. There's a lot of vacant land there.
But Martella says he's set on adding some green to the San Diego city skyline.
A marketplace would be the perfect thing to foster a new social interface in the city.
And as for those tomatoes?
The tomatoes aren't going to taste like a swimming pool. They're going to probably taste like the best tomato you've ever had.
Susan Murphy, KPBS News.